This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
Word Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm Major Richardson, and I'm also here with Jared Davis. We got to talk about another Tiger Bowl. This one didn't have the outcome we wanted. Auburn ended up losing to LSU 21-17. Jared, this was about one of the weirdest, ugliest, I'm going to say weirdest like 15 times probably in this podcast. But this is, we talked about, needing to win these messy games. And I felt like we gave ourselves multiple shots to do that. Didn't end up coming out with the win. And, with that comes the conversations, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, throughout this podcast is, where does Harsin kind of come into play with all these messy games? So, Jared, what was kind of your thoughts of this game and how Auburn had multiple chances to come out with a win?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a bizarre game, kind of like Missouri was. It's in different, ways. I talked to somebody and I was saying, Robbie Ashford is probably the only reason we're in the game, and he probably also cost us the game. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you got to expect from a young guy. I mean, so there was some great things we saw. There was some formations that we've been begging for. There was some spread. There was slant. I think we threw 2 slant passes. They're probably going to cancel football now at Auburn because of that. But we threw 2 slant routes. We had a drag route that I think Fromm got called for blocking a little too soon, but we brought Camden Brown across the middle. We did a drag route on that. And to Fromm's credit, he did make a great play the following play, so he made up for that. But, there was some passing routes we had not seen. They went back and dissected the route that Camden Brown ran, and it was a nice play. It was you kind of go towards the middle to get the safety to bite on that, and then he went back out towards the corner of the end zone, and there was nobody there.
Yeah.
So, but, yeah, all in all, it was a weird game. We outgained them, I think, over 100 yards. They had 85 yards passing total. I believe they had 5 yards in the second half passing.
Yeah.
I don't know how you lose a game like that. But, it was Auburn LSU. So
it is Auburn LSU. And I think one of the key things, and let's go ahead and jump into it, is turnovers. That's one of the big storylines of this year is how many turnovers Auburn's had and how many Auburn has caused from other teams. And there's this huge gap now. I think it's like 9. Auburn is -9 or -10, something crazy like that.
I think it's 10. I think I heard 10. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're giving the ball up 9 or 10 times extra to another team throughout the season, or to teams, I guess, then you're putting yourself in a really tough situation because that's extra possessions that the other team gets. And this game was definitely one of those. We had, and thankfully some of the fumbles didn't get recovered by LSU. I think we had 6 fumbles this game. 6? Are you kidding me? 6.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And thankfully only a couple of those were recovered by LSU. We also had a couple interceptions. One was from Robbie, and the other was, I believe, Coy Moore on one of those trick plays that we tried to run. So that's just kind of the storyline for this team this year. We're gonna have a lot of turnovers. We might have a few explosive plays, and guess what? Our second halves are not going to be existent for offense. And I feel like that's kind of the summation of at least so far where we're at. Is that accurate? Am I missing anything that you think kind of summarizes what we've seen so far?
No, the turnovers are just terrible. You can't, like I said, this goes back. Listen, Robbie, if you listen, you're the reason we even had a shot. But, the fumble recovery for a touchdown, that won them the game. If that play doesn't happen, we probably win that game 17-7 or 17-10.
Right. Well, and LSU doesn't have the momentum. I was literally sitting in the stadium right next to the LSU section, and as soon as they had that, they had a glimmer of hope. Literally every other, Auburn was on the field. Usually, the opposing, fans try to make a little noise. They were dead silent. It was honestly a little weird especially when we were up around 17-0, and you give the fans a little bit of hope, and then they start doing their LSU chants, and you're just like, oh no, like this is gonna happen. And I heard somebody literally right behind me was like, oh, we're looking good, and I was like, don't say that. Don't say that. Like, as soon as you get that mindset of we're doing good, that's when I feel like bad stuff starts happening. And sure enough, turnovers, lots of just non-execution of plays where Auburn just didn't play well, and so it resulted in negative plays. It resulted in interceptions. It's just lots of weird stuff, right? So
I told people before the game, we were 10-point underdogs. Some people were saying we're going to get blown out. I'm like, listen, this is not praise for Auburn, but LSU is not a good football team. And I said I was going to be surprised if we got blown out. And it turns out, as the game started, they weren't going to win that game unless we helped them. Mm-hmm. And we helped them several times.
Yes.
Coaching and play-wise. And so if we got up 17-0, I hate to say it, but it was almost like Alabama last year. When we got up 17-0, if we would have just taken a knee, like literally just taken a knee for an entire half, we probably would have done better. Just don't turn it over. Yeah. They weren't moving the ball. AJ, they had 85 passing yards total.
I don't think I've ever seen a team only have 85. Maybe I have. But it seems super rare in today's day and age when you have to pass the ball a little bit. And I'll give them this. They passed. The problem was how many, I don't have a number on it, but I can think of at least 5 or 6 where their receivers just straight up dropped it.
Yeah.
So they're gifting it to us in a way, but that's also quarterbacks, putting in the right spot, whatever.
I've watched 2 games now. Keyshawn Butte, or however you say it, that dude's checked out. Like, I watched Florida State and this game, too. I mean, he literally dropped, like, one of the most – and he just didn't even care. I mean,
wow.
he's
literally
costing himself millions.
Yeah, he's like I think I mentioned in our preview, I think he's a top 10 pick. But he literally, against Auburn, only had 1 reception for 4 yards.
Yeah, he's checked out, man. Like, and he wanted to transfer. I don't know if he – stayed for money or what, but he is not. He's not there, man.
That's such a weird thing. Like, I feel like if you know, like at this point, he's 4 or 5 games into the season, he's only got like a handful of more games left in his college career. Like, play hard, like play to win, and play your best. But this guy, I agree. Like, it seemed like he was almost non-existent on the field, and I wasn't expecting that, but. Maybe some of that was our defenders, but I mean, a talent like Booty, like he was such a, like, every other game that I've seen him, like last year, you were like that's the superstar on their team.
Last year he was amazing, but I watched him at FSU and after 2 games, I wasn't gonna do it on 1 game. After 2 games, I've concluded that his heart isn't in it. But anyways, doesn't matter. But yeah, that was my review after seeing him play.
Yeah. Let's talk about something else that I just thought was another kind of major storyline here. The second half struggles, and it's happening again and again and again. Why? Like, is it not adjusting? Is it the players? I mean, like my wife was like, are they just getting tired? And I was like, I don't think so, but maybe they are. But like, what's kind of your thoughts on why we're not getting into the end zone or getting even field goals sometimes in the second half this season?
I think at some point it's you just got to say it's coaching. I mean, I just schematically, I don't, people that are wiser than I am have gone back and rewatched tapes and say that we just don't make adjustments or not enough in the second half. And, the LSU player that intercepted Robbie, the last interception where he took it from Coy Moore.
Oh, yeah.
He could have just been talking trash. But he said after the game, he said, I knew what play they were running. They had just run it 6 times in a row.
Oh, my.
And so he said, I knew where that was going. That's what he said. And, if that's true, that's why you're not scoring in the second half. If you're still running the same plays and I know that you need to simplify things for Robbie, but yeah, again, I highly doubt it was 6 times in a row, but that guy did jump that route. And so he knew what was coming somehow. So yeah, I think it's just a combo, not a combo. I think it's literally just, some coaches got it and some don't. And maybe at Boise, they didn't have to make second half adjustments. Maybe they were already up enough. I don't know. But, I mean, what is this, AJ? This is like 7 or 8 games in a row where we have not scored 7 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That's insane. Or Power 5 games, I should say.
Yeah, Power 5, yeah. But that's the kind of stuff. I mean, you think about the great quarterbacks of they're scoring touchdowns in the fourth quarter on the last drive. And, the greatest offenses always figure out a way to score when it looks impossible. And, I feel like once you get to halftime, we're just, we're not doing enough.
I mean, wouldn't you think you almost would do it by accident at least once? I mean, you accidentally score 7. I mean, I think the last time we did it was maybe, I guess, Arkansas. I don't know. Maybe Arkansas, I think, was the last time we scored 7 in the fourth quarter.
I mean, that's like a year ago at this point.
Yeah, a year ago. It was October, I think, last year.
Yeah. So this is kind of just showing you, this is the theme. I mean, we've been trying to look for these because we're trying to figure out who Harsin is, how is he coaching. And one of the things we're noticing is, for some reason, that second half is being his Achilles heel. And that's such a weird spot to be at, because against big teams, or any conference teams for that matter, you have to score in the second half. I mean, we almost lost multiple times in Missouri because guess what? We didn't score. It literally took until overtime for us to score points against them. So I just think we have to do something different there. And it's also kind of interesting, because I was at the game. I saw the players get so fired up in the second half. So, I thought, they have the energy. They have the willpower. There are multiple times, Tank would get a big run, something would happen, and you, smile a little bit. And you're like, that's great. I want to see that. But it's not translating to getting into the end zone. And that's the weird part for me. Because, you can see it in the players' eyes. And for goodness sakes, I mean, we haven't even talked about it, but the stadium was, I love that game. Fans were into it. They showed up. The student section, especially fourth quarter, was nuts. How the heck we didn't score a touchdown in the fourth quarter, I do not know. But that's the kind of thing, that's kind of where we're at. I mean, Harsin said it early on, teams figure out who they are by around game 4. Well, that was game 5. So this is kind of just what you got to expect. We're going to cause turnovers and not score hardly at all in the second half. That's not a way for us to win games. So I don't know. Let's talk about some of the positives here. So I know we've talked a lot about, the issues that are glaring to a lot of people, but let's talk about some of the things that you and I both saw that were positives and potentially improvements on previously. Jared, what are some of the things that you saw this game that impressed you?
This game, Robbie, I would say.
Yeah.
I did not think that Robbie could ever be the future at Auburn. I thought basically we're going to try to make do. And last week, to be fair, they didn't treat him like he could be the future. They were doing run plays mostly with Robbie in Missouri, and they came out passing. And Robbie made a ton of really good plays. I mean, he was the reason we were up 17-0.
Yeah.
So I saw him. I said, that guy with more coaching, and I even said this, and I said, if he would have started game 1, and nothing against, I think either one of them would probably be in a better spot. But if he would have been the starter game 1, some of those mistakes he made yesterday, he would not have made. Some of those easier passes he would have made.
Well, and you're seeing, your point of you're seeing Robbie improve. I mean, he had 337 yards passing. For a guy that, think about it. We think of Robbie as he's the athlete. I mean, that's what the coaches kept saying. He's athletic. He can run fast. They didn't really talk a whole lot about his arm. And yet he made plays with his arm. Now, look at the stats, he was only 50% completions, but the 50% that he did complete were big time. I mean, Jared, just quick stat here. Without looking at your stat sheet, how many players for Auburn had at least one completion of 20 yards or more this game? Any guesses?
I think I don't know, like 6.
It was 6. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard him say it on the broadcast.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I know. Which is just incredible.
And Camden Brown was right behind there with an 18-yard completion for a touchdown. So that's kind of showing you like the explosive plays. You know, I think back to Gus's, you know, one of the things was he wanted to have explosive plays. We had some really explosive plays. It was just the finishing the drive, especially when you got into the red zone. That was the issue. So
we got down to I think it might have been the one where Coy wound up throwing the interception. We got down there and I said, we need to take a shot, right? It was first down. We need to take a shot. I said, because we cannot go 10 play. We can't do a 10 play drive without making a mistake. And my buddy sent back, he's like 10. I'm thinking 5. But either way, we needed to take a shot because we were getting chunk plays, but then we were also fumbling snaps and doing this and that. And I'm like, it's just, you can't trust a 10 play drive. You got to go after it. And, you know, I guess you could say the Coy thing was going after it, but I don't know. We need to. We got to figure. Let's just say this: I'm glad that JJ scored on his big completion, because if he gets tackled at the 10, we may not get it in.
No, that's so true. I think that's the way we're going to get points on the scoreboard. Is we're at the 25, 30, 40-yard line, and we make a play and we score a touchdown. I don't see it being a methodical, red zone type thing. I will say this, and I kind of thought this was interesting. They pulled out the Wildcat, which I think was maybe the first time we've done an official Wildcat. No, we've had both quarterbacks in there, but an official, Tank Bigsby takes a snap. So that was kind of interesting. I wonder if we'll implement that when we get into the red zone type situation.
Is that the one where he gave it to Robbie and he threw it to Omar Kelly?
I think that was it. Yeah, it was a trick play.
Man, and if that one right there, and you can't, two things. If Robbie puts touch on that, Kelly runs into the end zone. But what about the focus by Kelly? That ball was tipped. Kelly had to slow his route down. The ball gets tipped, and he still makes the catch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good play. That's true freshman.
Absolutely. And that's, again, showing you, one of the things we've been talking about a lot is we want to see these young guys, especially when the older guys are having their issues, which I didn't necessarily see as many issues from the older guys this game, but this kind of shows you the younger guys, that's the future. They're getting the excitement of a big game and making the big play. So definitely want to see more of that.
One other thing real quick I do want to tell you. You asked what I saw positive. Stats, I have no idea if stats are going to show up on this, but I feel like the O-line played better. I was thinking the same thing. There were times that Tank got stuffed at the line of scrimmage, but, we moved Brandon Council to center. We had over 100 yards rushing, and Robbie only had 18. So usually when we have good rushing, it wasn't him. So I felt like all in all, it was much better than Missouri. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, and what's crazy is I kept hearing over and over, LSU's front seven is really good. It's their secondary that has the issues. And I was thinking, wow, I think LSU only got a couple sacks on us the whole game. And thinking back on the Missouri game where it was just like they were in Robbie's face every single play. So I thought that was a big improvement. So again, it's the things like, Jared, when you and I are kind of looking at, how is Harsin doing? I evaluate, are we getting wins first off, right? And then, are they improving? And I saw some improvements, but I also saw the themes like we talked about, the turnovers, the second half struggles. And you're like, okay, so you take a step forward and then you take a couple steps back, and it's like, where are we at? We're kind of going backwards a little bit. So
agreed.
Jared, any kind of thoughts on, the one of the main topics right now is, is Harsin going to make it through the season? Well, we're recording this Sunday evening, and Harsin, as far as I'm aware, still the head coach of Auburn. What's kind of your thoughts on how, where he's at with the hot seat?
I I don't know. Is there like beyond a hot seat? I mean, is there like your seat? You don't even have a seat. Is that possible? I mean, and listen, this is never to knock on an individual. This is just is what we deal with, right? Let's look at the data. I just don't know, man. I mean, I don't think there's any ways our coach beyond this year. And at this point, everybody seems to think it probably will happen at the bye week. So that's what keeps floating around out there. I mean, if he goes and beats Georgia, okay, then we may have to have some conversation about what we're going to do. Yeah. But at this point, I just don't think he will be Auburn's coach next year.
Yeah. So I kind of have like two things going for so I have my heart that essentially I'm just like, yeah, he's done. And then I've got my head seeing the improvements, and we're seeing some positive changes and thinking, okay, we have definitely improved since the Missouri and the Penn State game. But is it enough? Like, that's always the question. Is it enough to keep your job where you're getting paid essentially, what, $5 million a year or so? That's a lot of money and a lot of commitment to a guy. And there's also this kind of like this weird balance kind of going on of, allowing him to have time, to figure out how it's going to work, because he obviously made a pretty big jump from Boise to Auburn, and we're seeing all of the growing pains, literally every possible growing pain that I could think of for a guy coming from Boise to Auburn. It feels like he had it and is going through that. And so are we going to, whoever's making the decisions, are they going to stick with it? Are they going to say, hey, Harsin, we believe in you, or not? I mean, and you got in the back of your mind also, what happened back in February and all the kind of internal investigation that became very public on Harsin. And there's just like this overwhelming, it feels like, sense of he's done. So it's like this battle of I see improvements, but then it's like, what? There's like I don't see a way out for him, like to have success. At least at this point.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think at least I didn't expect Harsin to come in here and win the SEC in the first two seasons. What you have to do is you have to come in, you have to show improvement, and you have to recruit. And I think this game showed improvement from our debacles the last 2 weeks, but I don't think it hasn't been a gradual improvement throughout the season, or, what I'm saying, since he's been here. I feel like we played so poorly a couple of games this year that this game, that was better. Yeah, this to me is how we should have started the season, and then we should be accelerating from that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel like this one was a little comforting, I saw some development, I saw some improvement, but we're still not great. And the other thing is, there is a trend now as to how he is going to handle second halves. I mean, it's beyond just an accident. That's not improving, and recruiting is terrible. And so I think you got to have something going for you. You can't be missing on every major facet, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I am totally okay with time. Like, I was actually a supporter of Harsin.
You said was.
I was. Yeah. At this point, yeah, like, it's too big of a... So, and I know that, and this will be the last thing I say about it. I never want anybody to lose their job. Everything I talk about is what's best for Auburn. But also, these people are paid a ton of money. It is a unique job, and they need results very quickly, or at least showing something I can point to prove to you I will get results. Because there's a lot of money. The entire town revolves around. There's a lot of people that stand to lose money if this thing goes south.
Yeah.
You can't wait around.
Right.
And you got to at least be able to point. So if he was having the same season, but he could point and say, hey, look, I'm number 10 in recruiting. Okay, perfect. Right now, that exact scenario, I'm like, keep him.
Right.
Give him another year.
Because he has the future class already bought into him and his system, and we're not seeing that yet, and that's the hard part. Because guess what? Early signing period is just around the corner, and that's not going to be good if we don't even crack the top 20 or top 25 in recruiting. when Auburn statistically should most definitely be kind of in that realm almost every single year with how much money flows into the university, with how much success we can have. And just for goodness sakes, I mean, we saw it this week from a couple of the recruits. They really enjoyed themselves. They thought the environment was fun. It's kind of like the environment itself sells itself. And, if you're not able to capitalize off of that, that's just, too bad, so sad. Like, it's not going to work out. So.
Yeah, I mean, if and I don't know, and I'll ask you this. I don't know where you are on this, but can he save his job at this point? Do you see a scenario he could do to where he's Auburn's coach next year?
I think, like you mentioned, you'd have to win some really big games. Like, you'd have to probably be somebody like a Georgia or, I mean, maybe even Ole Miss. Like, if you beat either Georgia or Ole Miss, both being top 10 teams right now, I think you have kind of essentially a proof of concept of, hey, I can win and I can beat teams that are obviously better than us. But at this point, I don't know if we're going to see that. I really don't.
Yeah, Georgia had their bad game last week.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they're going to be locked in, man. I've got a feeling it's going to be ugly.
Yeah, with how they were struggling against Missouri, and just think about what happened literally last week against Missouri for Auburn. Like that, I didn't even recognize the Missouri team. Like, that didn't seem right. That didn't seem like the right team that we had just played. That was honestly like probably going to beat Missouri unless Georgia slowly claws their way back. So pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was definitely not. Nobody was expecting that to go down to the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, I was texting one of my Georgia friends, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not worried." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? This is Missouri, bottom of the SEC team, and you're losing to them with only a few minutes to go." But anyway, let's talk about a couple standout players. So we talked about Robbie. I was pretty impressed with Tank this game. I still feel like this is so weird to think about, but like we still haven't seen him just completely go off. Like, he's had some pretty good games, but even this game, got 12 carries for only 45 yards. And that's, I feel like, not a whole lot for him. And that's kind of, again, coming back to offensive line, not opening up a ton of holes, and, like, it's just not working out for him. But that's just kind of where he's at. I mean, for such a good talent, I feel like he's not getting the stats to kind of back that up. Also, we got Camden Brown, got his first touchdown as an Auburn Tiger. So, love to see that. He was, I think, Jared, wasn't he one of your guys that you were getting pretty excited about this offseason?
Camden Brown, yes. He was, I mean, again, I'm going off of what everybody's saying and the all the coaches and everything. And Harsin would come up to the podium and talk about him. And I've been hollering to get the guy the ball. You saw his body size, right?
Yeah.
He's a big dude.
Yeah.
And, he obviously is learning. He was out there almost on every play, I felt like. Every time I looked up, I saw him lining out wide. Number 17, I don't know whose position he's taking, Landon King's, but I don't know. But he was out there a good bit. Tried to get him the ball. Like I said, we did a drag route with him over the middle. It was a good play call. We just blocked a little early. We went deep, threw it to them in the end zone. And, and it looked like him and Robbie may have a pretty good connection. And I know Robbie, think about it. We had not seen Camden Brown and Amari Kelly at all until Missouri, and they both got a catch in that game, and they both got a catch in this game. So maybe Robbie has a good connection or a good relationship with those guys.
Yeah, well, even Coy Moore, it's pretty obvious there's something going on. Like, they can read each other. They know what each other is doing. So I feel like that's kind of a cool thing where it's some guys that we probably hadn't even thought of. Because going into the season, I was thinking, okay, Shedrick Jackson's going to be a staple. And here we are. Shedrick Jackson didn't even have a reception now. He was targeted, I think, 1 or 2 times. But still, it's like we're almost seeing a complete turnover of who are our guys in the wide receiver room. So I think the future is bright for our wide receivers. You can see there's a lot of talent there. I'll also say this: John Samuel Schinker. I feel like he'd been a little quiet, at least with receptions. In this game, he finally started to coming out. I mean, he had a 27-yard reception, had a couple other receptions as well. So he's kind of, I feel like trying to he's getting more of his footing in there. I don't know if that's necessarily on him or that's a kind of a scheme thing where we, because of our offensive line issues, needing him to stay in for blocking a little bit more. But, hey, good to see him get a little momentum. Let's talk a little bit about defense for Auburn. A couple things, and these were kind of really, honestly, very impressive stats. You had already brought up, second half, we only allowed 5 yards receiving. But at least yards-wise, Auburn's defense had its best performance in more than a decade. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Because I was like, oh, we're having a good game for defense. But if you look at LSU's quarterback completions, they were 38%. 38%. I don't know if I've ever seen anything lower than a 40% completion by a quarterback.
Insane. That's insane.
So that was that's a feat by our defensive backs, by our front seven getting pressure. It was everything. So, the defense this game were the superstars. I leaned over to my wife after, in the middle of the second half. I was like, if we're going to win this game, we have to have a complete shutout in the second half. We were close, didn't get it, but that's what they had to do, and the defense was out on a mission to do that.
I think that if we were getting above average play at linebacker, I think we would probably be giving about 10 points a game. I think the defense has really started to come to play since Penn State. Yeah. I think our linebackers are not good.
I feel like they stepped up a little bit, but it's still not up to what we saw even a year or two ago.
Yeah, and I think I think Steiner might have had 15 tackles or something. But
he had a lot.
There are plays where he looks lost, like he doesn't even know. He's not even looking at the play. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you talk about giving a point in the second half. I think the busted wheel route, which was a huge gainer for them, was Owen's guy. I think Owen did not see him, busted coverage. I feel like there were times LSU could have just kept running up the middle. Like they were getting 7 yards a run, and then they'd go back to the pass, which thank you, because that helped us. So I think we got a little help from them. All in all, the defense was great. Defense gave up 14. The other point was the fumble return. So defense gave up 14 against Missouri. I just think that we are really good on D. I think we could be locked down good. I think the linebackers are our weak point, personally.
Yeah. Well, and I think Wesley Steiner, he was getting a lot more play time than I don't even know if he was expecting that. He led our team in tackles with 11. Owen was right behind him with 8 tackles this game and a quarterback hurry. So our linebackers were getting in on the action, but that was mostly because LSU was just running the ball right up the gut, so right at the linebackers. And they were doing it pretty effectively. And then you look at our defensive backs, they didn't get a whole lot of action. Even big guys like DJ James, who normally he's kind of up there, he only has 1 tackle this game. And that's mostly because LSU wasn't passing very efficiently this game. So kind of interesting there.
What about so nobody's really talking about it, but I think Eku Leota might be done for the season.
Yeah, I haven't heard official.
Pectoral is what they're afraid it is.
Wow. Yeah. He came off the field and he didn't look right. I was thinking shoulder or something, and then he comes out in street clothes and a sling, and I was like, that's not good. That's not good at all. So to have a guy like Eku who's been so efficient and very disruptive, kind of a combination of him and Derek Hall have been, it's been beautiful. And so I truly hope Eku's not out for the rest of the year. But if he's out, we got to have other guys, step up in his place.
Marcus Braggs played well when he came in. So, but the problem is we're so thin there. I think we got Dylan Brooks. He was a freshman last year. He's essentially the our backup option now. And then I don't know, we may have a true freshman. I think we got this year in the recruiting class. So we're very thin at the edge. So we need everybody to stay healthy in that regard.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk a little bit about special teams here. So we had more special team stuff happen than I hope we would. Our punting game from Oscar Chapman was phenomenal again. 4 punts, an average of 46 yards per punt. He did have a long of 50. Pretty cool stat here. He is this season averaging 44.1 net yards per punt. So net yards per punt means how far he punts it, and then you subtract anything that the receiver returns it. So really, you're flipping the field 44 yards every time he punts it on average. And that's number one in the SEC at this point. And there's only been punt returns on him. There's been literally -1 yards.
Wow.
So that kind of shows you that what he's doing is working. He's getting the amount of hang time, the distance, all that stuff. And so he's being very effective. So again, he's probably going to be my player to watch for this next week because goodness knows he's always great. But that's pretty cool to see him continue to excel. Also in special teams, we had a few punt returns from Keandre Scott. 3 punt returns for a total of 20 yards. He also did have that fumble in the fourth quarter, which really hurt us.
We talk about the turnovers that game. I'm like, well, one of them was basically negated.
Yeah.
But yeah, because we immediately came back and got it back from him.
Yeah, isn't that so interesting? Like how it just kind of does seem to kind of balance out sometimes when stuff like that does happen. Also, wanted to shout this out. The guy, very first play of the game, Seven Banks from LSU. He was carted off. At that point, I don't think he had any movement, and then he started to gain some movement back. Then he went to the hospital, got checked out, said everything was good. And I was like, thank goodness. Like, that looked terrible. I remember when that happened on the field. I don't know if they showed this on TV. But literally, as soon as the play was finished, one of the Auburn players, probably the guy he targeted ultimately, was like, get over here. Like, trying to call the medical staff over because he knew something was wrong, like, immediately. So that's got to be traumatic for him. And plus, like, also read the room. Like, why did they call it targeting on him? Like,
yeah, I know. Me and my wife were talking about that, and I said, thank goodness he didn't say the player has been ejected. At least they didn't say that because I'm like, yeah, that's pretty obvious. I mean, I will give him credit for that. Targeting such a, I don't know, that rule just needs to be reviewed. But yeah, they called that, but I was like, all right, at least they didn't say he's been ejected.
Right. That would have been, it was already insult, but that would have, he's already injured, insult to injury. Like, that's not, just don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was kind of like shocked too. And then I was like, well, at least they didn't say the other part.
Yeah, definitely. One other thing to talk about is Anders Carlson. He is definitely not himself, and it's really unfortunate. I think there was probably even multiple times where if we had the regular Anders Carlson before his ACL, I think we would have, kicked a few field goals, long 45, 50 yarders to at least give us a shot at scoring. And instead we would go for it on fourth down. And, Anders, past 40 yards, I don't know if we have faith in him. I don't know if Anders has faith in himself. And I hope he does. Like, if we're going to win these, messy games, we're going to have Anders out there kicking those field goals. And so that's just something really odd going on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame Anders for us going for it on 4th and 10. That was just a boneheaded coaching call. Yeah. But if Anders was making field goals, we probably don't go for it on 4th and 10. And to me, kicking is got to be the easiest thing as far as like, okay, can a freshman do this? If you can kick a football, you can kick a football, especially at home. The only thing I could see is if you're on the road and the crowd affects you mentally. I don't know why we don't. I mean, we got the number 1 high school kicker in America.
Yeah.
And, I know Legacy. I know, Daniel Carlson. I know you want Anders to be good. You want him to be back. But if we're being honest, he's made one of his last 4. He just had like 2 or 3 of them were offsides against Missouri. I mean, it's not great.
Yeah.
And if you can't trust the guy in certain spots, you got to give somebody else a shot, because you want to be fair to players, right? But you also have to be fair to the rest of the team. And if you do have somebody that can't do their job effectively, you got to look elsewhere.
Right. Well, and, I was thinking back to last year, when Bo Nix was struggling, guess what Harsin did? Pulled him out.
He pulled him.
And I think some of the fans are getting to a point, and it's obviously, I love Anders Carlson, but if he's not performing, and maybe it is something. I mean, we kind of saw it even in basketball with what's his face, who tore his ACL. I'm blanking on his name.
For Auburn?
Yes, coach's son.
Al Flanagan?
Yeah, Alan Flanagan. It's kind of the same thing. Like, it took him a long time to get back, and I still feel like Alan Flanagan isn't the player that he was before his injury, and so it's the same kind of thing that I feel like Anders is going through, and so I hope he can get some sort of help. Maybe it's just a mental game, because he looks healthy. He really does. Besides the brace on his leg, looks great. So
yeah, I think you and I are, we get on here and we talk about but people and stuff, but from a personal standpoint, love Anders. Like, hope the best for him. Really would rather it be him out there kicking. I just, you can't sacrifice the team, and maybe they've tried McPherson. Maybe he's in practice not consistent enough. Who knows? You would hope they're giving him that shot to prove it, because you want the best player out there. When we went for it on 4th, and first off, you don't trust your kicker in that spot. I would have just punted it, because LSU was not moving the ball well.
yeah.
Wouldn't have gone for it on 4th and 10, but I feel like with a kicker we trusted, we would kick the field goal there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jared, any other final thoughts before we get out of here?
Nope. I think we have pretty much covered it all. So we'll just buckle up for next weekend against Georgia.
Oh, buddy. I'm getting buckled up.
Yeah,
already.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
All right, Jared, how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook. My name is Jared Davis.
And you can find me on Twitter at AJY_. It's always here to be an Auburn Tiger and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.